special guest on today's show, talking about how software and technology is finding itself in so many other areas that you may not, some of you may expect it, but maybe not to this degree. And one of the things that really caught my attention about this particular story is how this particular company software is being used to help with everything, help coaches, help teams, help with player selection for professional sports teams. Probably most notably the Green Bay Packers, the Super Bowl champions. So I want to go ahead and bring on our special guest. He is the CEO and co-founder of Decision Lens, Mr. John Saaty. John, welcome to the Mario Armstrong Show.
Hi, Mario. Thanks very much for having me on.
Yeah, glad to have you swing by the show and talk a little bit about what's going on with Decision Lens. Pretty interesting because that's just one form of your client list. I mean, it kind of rolls from NFL to to NASA.
It does, and everything in between. The Joint Chiefs of Staff and Kraft uses it to select what new candies they're going to bring to market. So it really has a broad range of application.
Yeah, so how did this, first off, what does this software of yours do? Break this down for the average listener. Why are so many different people and organizations from so many different spectrums interested in using it?
Sure. So what you can think of is it's software that enables a group to come together and collaborate around major complex decisions, whether it's what players the Green Bay Packers are going to be selecting for their team, or the Carolina Hurricanes or the Calgary Flames, to the joint staff, what weapon systems they should be investing in, to, as I mentioned, Johnson & Johnson or Kraft deciding what new products to bring to market. I think the unique thing about it is it enables you to compare apples and oranges, which is often very difficult. People always say, well, you can't compare apples and oranges. Well, actually, you can compare them if you think about them in terms of their characteristics. Things like a fruit have characteristics around juiciness and texture and sweetness and tartness and taste. So you really can compare which do you prefer, an apple and an orange, and you do that every day when you go to the fruit bowl. It's the same thing when you're going to pick a player. What are the important characteristics, physical attributes, stats and performance, their background, their leadership, all those things that you prioritize, and then you use those priorities to evaluate who you're going to select.
Yeah. So we're talking massive software that can do mathematical computations of all types of variables that are being put into this system.
You know, it sounds complex, but it's really not that complex. It's desktop and web-based software. It's been used by people to select what school they're going to go to, all the way to, which spouse to pick, type of thing. Should I marry this woman? Should I not? Should I divorce?
Wait, so is your software driving some of the online dating sites?
It's not now, but it could be used for that.
Right. Okay. Sure. Okay. So how is it being used? How was it specifically? One of the things that caught my attention coming off of the Super Bowl was, absolutely the NFL. And, it's no secret that the NFL, and sports teams in general pour over data. I mean, it's like, you look at ESPN and all you see are numbers and messages and scrolling and all types of data to measure performance. But measuring performance can mean a variety of different things against different environments, against different competitors, against different teammates. Am I right? I mean, you
got it, exactly. Yeah, that's the big challenge. I mean, all these teams in the professional sports leagues spend millions and millions of dollars on their scouts. The Packers and, most NFL teams will have anywhere from 10 to 15 scouts, and what they're doing is gathering loads and loads of data, and at the same time, they're making personal assessments of the players. They're trying to, assess why it is that, player A is going to be better than player B in any given position. And I'll tell you, these scouts can articulate better than anybody you can imagine. They can argue for a particular player. But what they don't do is actually step back and say, wait a second, across our whole organization, what is it that we're trying to accomplish in this position? And how do we blend both my personal feelings about the player with all the data and the background that comes with that player? And so that's what Decision Lens does, is it enables them to bring all that information together across all the different scouts, workouts for players in each position, and they can bring together the coaches, other players on the team, the administration to drive, here's what our priorities are for a wide receiver in this position. They have to have good hands. They have to have these type of stats, this type of speed, and then they use decision lens to select it. So,
and do they do that in combination with, let's compare these different potential wide receivers with our current mix of quarterback and other players. And is that, go ahead, finish.
That's absolutely it. And so if you think about it, a wide receiver for every team in the league is going to be a different need depending on who your quarterback is, how much speed you have with your other wide receivers, so it's a custom decision for every single position, and it is based on what the other players are capable of on the team. So the needs, the priorities that you have for that player are going to be different depending on what other players you have.
Yeah, and bottom line, folks, this thinking, this process that we're talking about here, as we're just really, I think this is a great example. People can really gravitate to this NFL example, but this is something that can be, for a variety of different business decisions and thought processes, and we can chat about those in just a second. I want to stay with this football analogy or this example for just a little bit further. One thought comes to mind is that systems, computers, software is great at measuring data and being able to show us how things can stack up against things. But what about when we have to account for personalities? Does your software, or has there been a request for, on paper, statistically, data-wise, looks great, but is there also personality factors that go into decisions in the makeup with your software, specifically with sports teams?
Yeah.
Really?
No, that's exactly it. So you'll have considerations for the players that include intangibles, which are things like what's their fit with the team, what's their big playability, their leadership, what's their background like. So the Atlanta Falcons told us that, Michael Vick destroyed $300 million worth of franchise value of the Falcons. I mean, they hadn't kind of looked into the background of the player and said, hey, is this important or isn't this important? So how do you assimilate all of those different, sort of experiences, more intangible evaluations of the player with their stats and performance? How do they do in college? And what's interesting, the number one method that the NFL uses for selecting players is actually how they perform in the combine, right? So, the combine just happened here a couple of weeks ago. How fast are they? How do they do in the cone, the shuttle, and all that? But it's been shown that actually the combine is not really a good predictor of performance in the NFL. It's all these other intangible things that go into making players great.
I would think so. I would, and this may also explain why so many people see phenomenal players just have mediocre careers. And you're just like, what's going on? What's wrong with the mix? Have individual players, has this gotten to the point where individual players are recognizing, there's technology out there that can help me find the best team for me, not the team trying to find me, but me find the best team. You know what I mean? Like flipping it around.
That's a good question. We actually haven't gone to that. I'd love to go to the Players Association and see if they'd like to take it out to the players to assess that. And in fact, talking about the Players Association, this is something that could be used. It's used in conflict resolution all the time to decide what are your priorities, what are mine. And if the Players Association had something that they could use with the NFL commissioner, the owners, to bring to the surface what their priorities are. What is it that we're trying to accomplish? It's something that can, help move the process along instead of a breakdown, just over what the costs are involved. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
No, this is really, really exciting stuff. To kind of hear that this type of technology usage is taking place. Do you feel that teams have a competitive advantage? Well, maybe that's an obvious question. You're going to say, yes, if they're using my software, of course they're going to have a competitive advantage. But what I guess really what I was trying to get at is the fact that I think so many people may not understand the depth that technology is now pervading into areas like sports. You know what I mean? And like how that becomes a part of your competitive set for your team's organization.
It definitely does. I mean, we started working with the Packers in late 2008, and I'm not going to say it's because of Decision Lens that they won the Super Bowl, but they definitely have been using the platform to select their players over the last couple of years. By example, B.J. Raji and Clay Matthews were both selected using Decision Lens. So,
all right, so let me work on. I'll take a hint from that Ray Lewis and my Ravens need to call you guys up. Obviously. Obviously, I got to get my boys on par with Decision Lens. You're right in Arlington, Virginia. It's a short drive. I'm going to talk to the CTO over at the Ravens and say, hey, look, I just got off the phone with the Decision Lens. I need you to take a look at this because I spent a lot of money on my season tickets, and I need you guys to win the Super Bowl.
We'd love to talk to the Ravens, and they're owed a Super Bowl by about now. So any way we can help them get there, we'd love to.
All right, so real quickly, other areas that your software, you mentioned defense, and I think that's a real area of interest, especially when we're starting to look at budget cuts and things of that nature, and where are we going to pull from? How in what you can share, how is your software used in helping make those defense decisions?
Yeah, sure. So great question. It's used across the service lines from the Navy to the Air Force to the Army. In capital planning decisions, the Navy used it to select, they've got 55,000 facilities around the world. These include bases and berths for ships and, all these different facilities. How do you decide what you're going to invest in, what you're going to maintain, what you're going to close?
Right.
So it's called their base of service operations. The Navy actually allocated $10 billion with Decision Lens last year to these various functions. And it's very similar in the Army and the Air Force. USDA is using it to transform their, IT investments, and every major intelligence agency uses Decision Lens now for a whole variety of decisions. What assets should they invest in for intelligence gathering, those types of decisions.
Yeah. And real quick, thanks for sharing that. But real quick, let's give out the website. It's Decision Lens. Just had it up here for a second.
It's www.decisionlens.com. So it's just the word decision.
Oh, there we go. Yep. L-E-N-S, folks. Decisionlens.com. I love the slogan. I love it. The benefit of foresight.
Right, exactly.
It's like, it's just at the point of, wow, that sounds great. And almost at the point of, oh my God, it's like Minority Report. It's always like, you're not that far like we can predict the future, but at the same time you're like, hey, doesn't it help if you could see what you're getting into and make the right decisions based off of that? It's like,
that's exactly right.
Yeah, that feels good. So I like the benefit of foresight because it feels calmer. Feels like I need that. I need the benefit of, who doesn't need the benefit of foresight? Real quickly though, talk to me. We only have about a minute and a half left. About the entrepreneurship of this. I love it when I can bring guests like you on that have also created this vision and bootstrapped this concept.
Yeah, you bet. So it's interesting. My brother and I founded the company. My father's a mathematician. He's a leader in the area of decision theory. He's actually a university professor. And we said, you know what, why don't we take his theory and turn it into software and see if we can start selling it to organizations to make better decisions. We founded the company about 7 years ago. We went live with our first product in 2005. This past year we made the Inc. 500 fastest growing company list in the country. And it's bootstrapped. We haven't taken on capital, so for all your listeners out there, you actually can start and run a business without raising a bunch of money and trying to burn through it and see if you can turn the corner to profitability. It is doable.
Did you fund this? Did you fund this from clients then? Is that how you?
That's right. Yeah.
So you use whatever.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Very little of your own cash or from investors. So you kept the ownership to you guys.
Correct.
But
we
use
also
clients to fund.
Right, exactly. There are people in the company that own sort of, a part of it as the employees, but most of it, my brother and I did the initial investment, a very small investment by any measure, and we said we got to fund it by selling it to clients that actually value it enough to pay us for it.
Right. So your model, real quick, is it a subscription model to pay for your software, or is it like a one and done? And how does that work?
It's a subscription. Yeah,
it is
so it's web-based and desktop, and it's an annual license that they decide to renew on an annual basis.
And I imagine soon you'll be on mobile devices as well.
Yep,
if
the
not
next
mobile
platform's
apps.
coming out in June, and it'll be used on mobile devices for, people to input their judgments and structure their decisions. Yes.
Well, I have a player, man, as a free agent that might really be interested in using this for themselves to find out what the right team is for them.
I'd love to talk to them because there are a lot of. That's a tough decision, I'll tell you.
It is a tough decision, but I do appreciate you taking the time to really kind of break this down from what your company's doing, and congratulate you on figuring out how to bootstrap this thing and commercialize Dad's tech. You commercialized it internally, which is awesome.
Yeah.
And you're in a good part of the U.S. where based over there, you're like in North Virginia corridor, right?
Exactly, Arlington.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, Arlington. Yeah. So you're near. Oh, and obviously, next door to the government, which
yeah, that's exactly right. Well, we located in Arlington because the largest customer on the planet is in Arlington. It's the Department of Defense, and we said, look, if we can't help them figure out how to make better decisions and allocate resources more effectively, then we should just hang it up now. And luckily, they were our first customer, and they still are a large one today. So.
Do me a favor, man. When you get a chance, and maybe this is in